SMU is sending a message to Texas in 2025. Is Baylor their first victim?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello there, fans. We got a nice bear and pony show for you today on this Locked On Crossover edition. I'm Cam Stuart from Locked On Baylor, Grayson Singleton from the freshly minted Locked On SMU, and part two of our opponents preview series for Baylor. Week 2, they head up to Ford Stadium to take on the Mustangs, 16th ranked in the country in the coaches poll. We will talk about that. We're going to talk about what SMU is trying to prove this year, especially in that non-conference schedule, why the Mustangs can get back to the CFP, and are they looking for a little bit of a route towards the Big 12? All that and more coming up on this Locked On Crossover edition. Grayson Singleton, Locked On SMU. Summer has been treating you well. How excited are you to get this game back on the schedule as a native Texan, to get this game back on the schedule, Baylor-SMU?
You know what's interesting is that the state of Texas has, 6 Power 4 schools now? Houston,
sounds right.
Texas, A&M, SMU, Baylor, TCU. Okay, there you go. So you got 6. And the fact that one of the teams can play 2 of them in the non-conference is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think
really not have to travel. It's great.
No, and not even have to go anywhere, really. Yeah. So the fact that you have this proximity and you're going to play this level of a non-conference schedule, I think is awesome for SMU. And I can't wait for the Mustang season to get started. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Dude, it's great to have you on, by the way. This is the first time we've crossed over, which I can't say for many of the hosts that we talk to throughout the season, but I think we're both in the same boat, right? Like, we want the talking to be over. We do this for a living. We do this every single day, so we will continue to do the talking, but we want it to be over in the sense that we want to see them actually strap it up, have the helmets on, and take the field. Both of us pretty excited for this season. Quarterback, bringing a lot back. There's got to be a huge buzz around this Mustangs team after the CFP appearance.
There's a lot of buzz, and I think a lot of the buzz has brought about a lot of confusion because nobody really knows what to do with SMU. I mean, sure, they made the college football playoff last year, but a lot of people are saying, well, let's see what they do with a much tougher schedule this year. And look, it's no secret that they didn't play Clemson last year. They didn't play Miami last year, both of whom they played this year. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, that's warranted, that sort of conversation. But you look at how SMU defeated these teams. You look at how they found ways to win, how dominant the defense was. There is validity to them making the college football playoff. Now, this year, again, they're going to have to do it against a tougher schedule. I think they're equipped to do that, but they're also losing their leading rusher from a year ago. They lost their leading 4 of their 5 top wide receivers last year are gone. Tight ends coming back from a torn ACL, and they lost their 2 best pass rushers. So there's a lot of talent that exited the door, but there's a lot of talent that is still in that program. So really, nobody knows what to do with this SMU team, and quite frankly, I can't blame anybody.
Sounds like a Big 12 team. Just no idea what to do with them. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Literally.
So like, fluke or not, obvious. I don't think a team getting into the college football playoff these days is a fluke, but I understand the argument, right? Fluke or not, this is not the college football playoff team. This is not the same team out there.
No, but enough of the remnants are still there. So The quarterback is still there. Mm-hmm. Now, you lost rushers and receivers, but a lot of the guys that are going to be in those starting roles this year were in the program last year. So Jordan Hudson and Romello Brinson at wide receiver, they were in the program last year. The guys at linebacker that are going to come up and replace the top 2 tacklers were in the program last year. One of them at least was. They brought in another linebacker, Zakai Barker, over from East Carolina. Isaiah Wacobia and Ahmad Moses, the 2 safeties were there last year. So the point is, and I've made this point on the show before, is that SMU's got a lot coming back that was already in the program. And I think that sort of continuity is why that they are still regarded as a top 20 team, because there's not a whole lot of new here It's just a whole lot of we haven't seen them in a starting role.
And there is something to be said for that in college football in 2025. Like even the backups on a college football playoff team can hit the portal and find a role and maybe make some money. And that doesn't sound like it's the case for Rhett Lashley's guys this year. And obviously Kevin Jennings holds a big piece of that together, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here. But back to kind of this non-con. All right. So a couple of cupcakes in there. We've all got them. But mixed in there, you've got Baylor at home week 2, and then TCU a few weeks later. We know the Iron Skillet has come back in the last few years. Dominant win last year, sending Sonny out in quite a grand fashion in that.
Kind of nice.
That was incredible. The Baylor fan, was watching that with a pretty big smirk too. But let's play it out like this. If SMU wins both these games, they take out Baylor and TCU. Again, Texan, transplant Texan, native Texan here. What kind of message does that send about ACC, phony ponies, fraud, college football playoff team SMU?
Well, it puts it to bed. I mean, quite frankly, because now you're non-con, you've gone 2-0 against 2 Big 12 opponents. And here's the thing. The ACC, I don't think is regarded as the baby conference anymore. I quite frankly think that's the Big 12, especially a Big 12 that no longer has Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, let's be real. Arizona State was picked last year. And they were the ones that represented the conference in the college football.
It's a great story. That's a great story.
It's a fantastic story, but there's no team in the Big 12 now that moves people. You know what I'm saying? That moves people the way that a lot of the SEC teams do.
Right. There's not that brand that you're like they should be in it every year.
Exactly. And also I'll ask you this before I go back and answer that SMU question. I'll ask you this. Do we know anything about most of these Big 12 teams? Like what is there? Is there one thing that everybody can consensusly agree on? Because everybody consensusly agrees that Clemson is the cream of the crop of the ACC, and then there's Miami and SMU. We know what the SEC landscape is like. We know what the Big 10 landscape is like. Is there any agreeable factor in the Big 12 with how anybody thinks that conference is going to shake out?
Well, I'll tell you, the consensus is it's the toughest conference to pick in America. It is. For better or for worse. I think if you talk about a landscape, we can tier this, like for sure. I think with some sort of certainty of, these are the contenders. There's 4 or 5 versus 2 in some other conferences, right? These are probably the pretenders. But to your point, Arizona State would have been firmly as a pretender last year, and they went on to go and win the conference. I think, I don't think there's a clear cut on who this is going to be. What makes, I think, the Big 12 so interesting this year is the depth they have, the depth and the continuity they have at quarterback. There's so many guys who have played a ton of snaps before as starters. You lose Shedeur Sanders, who was the best quarterback in the conference last year, but you bring back Sawyer Robertson, Sam Leavitt, Avery Johnson, Jalen Daniels, Baron Morton, Josh Hoover. You go up and down the list. There's not a lot of teams that are trotting out a new guy this year. And some of the ones that are teams like Houston, who's really excited about trotting out Connor Wegman versus what they've had in the last couple of years. So, and whether that's justified or not, it's probably better than Zion Chris. But that is kind of the consensus, that it's a quarterback conference, but the consensus is there's no consensus. They don't know who's gonna win this. And it's a B word to pick.
But here's the thing though. Every other conference, and by the way, I don't like saying this about the Big 12. I'm an Oklahoma State alum. Like, I am very familiar with the Big 12, and I love the Big 12. But is there a team in the Big 12? Because every other conference has at least one that could potentially be a national championship team. Every other conference has at least 2 or 3 quarterbacks that we look at and say, "Ooh, that dude could be the cream of the crop atop the NFL draft." Does the Big 12 have those? And that's what I mean when I say, does the Big 12 have anything that moves people now? Is like that dominant team, that dominant QB?
Probably not. My defense would be the SEC's got a lot of those and they don't win national championships anymore. So maybe that's the way we're looking at it. But no, there isn't that one that you say this team should run the table, be a top 4 seed in the playoff, standing or conference championship alignment aside. There's not one of those. There's not.
Yeah, no, I would agree to that. And I think that's where in the Big 12, if you want to get over, because you were talking about, SMU in the ACC and people sliding that. If you're the Big 12 now, especially a conference that doesn't have Texas and Oklahoma in it, I do think you have to have that some semblance of dominance to where people stop lazily putting, that sort of baby Big 12 kind of moniker on you. And I think it reflects in the negotiations going on with representation in the college football playoff if it were to continue to expand.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's part of the reputational part. You definitely need that. Like here's where I look at the Big 12 is they got hurt reputation wise when Oklahoma and Texas left. No doubt. Nobody can argue that. But what it did was it made everything a little bit more interesting competition wise and expansion wise. Like this opened up a ton of new doors for the Big 12, and we can argue all day as to whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing. I think most Big 12 fans would take Texas and Oklahoma back for a lot of reasons and not take them back for still more reasons. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was.
No, I know I completely hijacked this segment when I first threw that first point out.
Started kind of going with one point, and I don't know where I was going with it. But yeah, it's one of those, and that's kind of the difference between the ACC and the Big 12 right now, right? Like, we look in the Big 10 as well. To be totally fair, we look at the Big 10 and the ACC as one or two teams at the top, maybe Big 10, 2 or 3 teams at the top. Last year you had Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. And in the ACC, you're looking at it mainly as Clemson. A lot of years it's Florida State. Obviously not right now. It's probably Miami being a top 10 team. And then that SMU dark horse kind of on the outside. Big 12 doesn't have that. But what it has is a lot of competition, man. And we love that.
The Big 12 is going to be competitive for sure.
Can't wait, man. And I want to learn some more about these SMU Mustangs. I want to know how they get back to the ACC championship. I want to know how they get back to the college football playoff. Let's do it next on this Locked On Baylor, Locked On SMU crossover. But first, a word from our sponsor over at FanDuel. We've got our summer sports in full swing. And guys, you want to make everything more interesting. 162 baseball games a year. All right. How do we make that more interesting? Well, FanDuel is the answer. Okay. I can't find there it is. FanDuel, you were hiding from me. I appreciate you coming back. All right. Whether you're into baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh. Daily promotions and new fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing the same game parlay or watching that bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back on this Locked On crossover, Locked On Baylor, Locked On SMU, Cam Stuart, Grayson Singleton. Grayson, I gotta admit to you something here that might have become apparent in the first segment. I'm pretty dumb, especially when it comes to this SMU team. Okay, I watched them a little bit at the end of last year. I watched the ACC championship, watched the college football playoff game. I need to know more about this SMU team. And if these new look but continuous Stangs are going to get back to the college football playoff discussion, take me through kind of what needs to go right and who needs to shine.
Well, what needs to go right is a lot of things. Number one.
It's a college football playoff.
Yeah, but if you look into their numbers from last year, you find some really interesting trends. Number one, they were the only team to make the college football playoff a season ago with a negative turnover margin. They were -2 in the turnover, but they were the only one. Like, especially in a world where only 12 teams make the playoff, that is bananas that you do that with a negative turnover differential. Like, I mean, I don't think that's ever been heard of. And that showed in the Penn State game where they turned the ball over a lot, weren't good in the red zone. So there's that. But also, they were excellent throughout the season in situational football. They converted 45% of their third downs. They were excellent in the red zone. I think at the end of the season, they averaged about 5 points per red zone trip, which is fantastic if you can duplicate that, especially. So they're a really, really good situational team. So if they duplicate that, I think you're already on a good path. But that turnover differential, to me, has to be flipped on its head. And that's going to start with Kevin Jennings, because Kevin Jennings started, where did they play? 14 games. So he started 11 games. He threw 11 picks. That's got to come down. And I think it will come down with a full offseason in the offense. And now he is the dude. Now, the full offseason as the dude commanding the offense. I think that'll come down. And then also them being more another year seasoned on the back end. And because I think now they've got two really talented safeties in Isaiah Wacobia and Ahmad Moses. If they can take the ball away more, and I know I'm asking a lot because they both had 3 picks each last year, so they're really good at doing that. But if they can spearhead the defense in terms of taking the ball away more and creating even more advantageous opportunities for their offense, that's how SMU duplicates what they did last year against a much tougher schedule. So basically what I'm saying is a lot of things have to go right, but they did a lot of the right things last year. They just need to do that just a little bit more because of the uptick in competition.
And talking about Kevin Jennings there, obviously, this is where we're pretty similar once again, these Baylor and SMU teams. Last year, we started with different quarterbacks, Preston Stone, DeQuan Finn. Sawyer Robertson takes the reins at Baylor. Kevin Jennings takes the reins at SMU. Now, you did a video recently, an episode recently, about the legitimacy of a Kevin Jennings Heisman candidacy. And I've done something very similar with Sawyer Robertson. I don't think it's crazy that he can end up at least in New York. Like, it would take a lot to go right, sure, but I don't think it's absolutely crazy. So how does Kevin Jennings get there? And is he one of the best kept secrets in college football even after making the playoff?
I don't know if he's a secret. That's a really interesting way to put that. I don't know if he's a secret anymore. I do think he has a lot of untapped ability, though. And the reason I believe that, Cam, is because there is just these little things that need to be improved. His footwork in the pocket, his footwork wasn't great, and that led to him having a pretty high rate of inaccurate throws. I think that comes down just again with another year of being the number one guy. His progressions, he's got to be a little bit better of processing information. Again, things that just get better with time. So that's why I think there's a lot of untapped ability, is just because he hasn't had the time to fully tap into that ability. So if he corrects all of that, now you're talking about a guy who is incredibly gifted athletically, has a big arm, and for all intents and purposes is a dude that wants to go to work and is a highly smart, highly intelligent football player. So you put all of that together, combined with the fact that he already has put up good numbers. Now he's going to be able to do it in more primetime games against a Miami team and at a Clemson team that we expect will compete for a natty. The ingredients are there for him to be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. Cut down on the turnovers, increase the yardage output, which, by the way, will be increased because he's going to start every game barring injury. Yep. So, I mean, the numbers he put up last year, over 30 touchdowns accounted for, was in all the starts -3. So you're talking about more starts. You're talking about being more in command. You're talking about having some of the mechanical issues ironed out. Absolutely. If SMU goes back to the college football playoff, it will be in large part because Kevin Jennings was a top 10 quarterback in the country. That could be good enough to get him to New York.
I like that. And this is going to be a heck of a quarterback matchup as we kind of hone in on week 2 specifically. Are we going to get just like a good old-fashioned track meet in this game? Like, we've got 2 pretty good offenses going up against it, and it's early in the season.
I think it's a possibility because
or maybe we get SMU BYU game last year. That was a classic.
That was a classic for all the wrong reasons, Cam. that was
classic nonetheless. That was football, baby. They would have loved that in Iowa.
That was a classically hideous football game. Look, here's the concern about SMU's defense. That front seven has a lot of unknown. They lost the top 2 sack artists from a season ago. You lost your top 2 tacklers from the linebacker position from a season ago. So that front seven is going to be weak, which may allow Baylor to get up and down the field. So you could see a track meet. Now, I am not well versed in how good Baylor's defense is going to be this year. I am very confident in it. Oh, great. Oh, this is perfect. Cool. So I think this fits right into I think this fits right into my answer, which is it very well could be, because I expect SMU's offense to be able to go up and down the field this year, as long as they can keep the quarterback clean, which I have very grounded reason to believe that they will be able to do so. So given the fact that I think SMU is going to be able to go up and down the field offensively, I think the front seven is going to take a minute. I think that's going to take a minute to come around. If what I think about it is true, that it can be pretty good, but it just needs some more live action to be able to get to that point. So, especially with the new signal callers and stuff on the defense, with Zakai Barker coming into the program from outside the program, I think Baylor gets them at a pretty good time to be able to make a dent in that defense. So I could easily see a 34-24 type of game, 34-27 type of game in week 2.
Ooh, classic for all the right reasons, I think. That would be a ton of fun.
It would be a much more aesthetically pleasing football game.
I hope so. We are going to hear about maybe a breakout candidate for SMU and whether they're just this much closer to getting in the Big 12 and playing Baylor and TCU every year. Let's talk about it next on this Locked On Baylor, Locked On SMU crossover. All right, Grayson, I'm putting you very much on the spot here because I didn't mention this, but it's something I always want to do with these opponent previews. Because you've mentioned some names, some new guys on the team, so maybe you've already said the answer to this next one. But who is the breakout candidate on this SMU team that we'll know about by the end of week 2?
Derek McFall. He'll be a redshirt sophomore running back, and he right now could be RB1. Now, the backfield needs to iron itself out for SMU because they lost Brashard Smith, and early indications is that there isn't a bell cow dude in that backfield. So you've got a backfield right now that composes of Derek McFall, who's a redshirt sophomore. You're going to have TJ Harden, who transferred in from UCLA, and Chris Johnson Jr., who transfers in from Miami. Now, all of those 3 are very versatile guys, so they cover all the bases of what you want. Scat back, guy that can receive out of the backfield, guy that can be your primary 2-down back, guy that can get the short yardage and goal line yardage. So you've got everything you need. Just how will the snaps be delegated is the question now. But I think Derek McFall has the upper hand right now, and I think he's going to be a dude that you're going to have to watch out for if you're Baylor in week 2. That would be the first answer off the top of my head.
We could get a great running back matchup, even though these two teams both have really good, if not great, quarterbacks as well. So that could be really interesting. Let's throw it back to the conference discussion we had earlier. Obviously, SMU was made kind of a punchline, honestly, when they joined the ACC. They get into the big time, but they've got to sacrifice all this money. They're not going to get it for so long. And then all they do year one is make the ACC championship game, really showing, hey, we do deserve to be here. That said, the Big 12 never turns down expansion. They just turned down Memphis as a school, but they're always looking to expand a little bit more.
That was a hilarious turn of events.
It was pretty funny.
That was crazy.
Because their deal actually was going to, I think, make more than what the ACC was going to make off SMU. And the Big 12 was like, actually, we're good. We're fine. So let's play this out. If SMU gets the call tomorrow and is like, we'll buy you out of the ACC, we'd love to have you come in the Big 12. You don't have that reputational factor that Clemson brings to the ACC. But would SMU make that deal and say, we want to be there in the Big 12?
Let me ask you this, Cam. Pitch this to me.
Question with a question. Love it.
How does SMU benefit now from moving from the ACC to the Big 12? What upside is there for SMU to do that?
Well, I'll tell you, you're going to make more money. There's going to be more money in the Big 12 in the next couple of years. And with the uncertain future of the ACC, like that could fall down like a deck of cards, like it almost did with the Big 12 not all that long ago. So that's a big benefit. And in terms of, again, more of the practical thing than the money thing, I guess, is you're playing a better geography here. You know, you're playing TCU and Baylor and Houston and Tech and Oklahoma State, which is closer than Houston is. Like that, I think those things combined still make it a really attractive offer for SMU.
Okay. So your whole prediction that the ACC is heading down a route that could mirror what the Pac-12 did a couple of years ago is interesting. And I think that's a point that shouldn't be ignored. Geography to me is the biggest advantage there because you're not going cross country to play Stanford or you're not going cross country to play Wake Forest or something like that. Here's the difference though. You could still have to go cross country to play West Virginia.
Yeah.
You still would have to go somewhere to play like an Arizona or an Arizona State.
Yeah, but that's in the ACC. You're doing that every week.
No, well, it's true to a certain extent. But here's what mitigates that for SMU though. SMU's in the middle of the country, so it's not like they're going from one coast to the other. Here's the thing though. SMU has made such an entrance into the ACC that I think right now, given where everything is right at this moment, there isn't that much more. There is some, but not that much more of a upside for SMU making that move to the Big 12. Now, that's not to say that there never will be, because here's the scenario in which you really have to look at that.
Right.
If there is serious buzz and noise, serious credible buzz and noise that Clemson or a North Carolina or a Florida State is trying to force its way to the SEC, then you might want to get ahead of that and say, hey, Big 12, you got a spot for us. And that, if that happens, now we're talking. But, there was the report that North Carolina might be trying to go to the SEC. Doesn't look like that's going to happen right now. If the tires start rolling on something like that, and it looks like we're going to the SEC completely engulfing the ACC, absolutely that would be the natural move. But until then, I think SMU right now being a top 3 football team with Miami and Clemson is notoriety enough for that school. So I would give this still a few more years in the ACC if I was to make a prediction for SMU. I don't think they're in a rush to hop out, especially with the kind of first-year entrance they made a season ago.
So they're saying no. Phone rings tomorrow. They're saying no.
I think right now they are. But like if college football changes again in the next half decade, I wouldn't put it past them.
It's going to change in the next month or so. I'm sure it will. It will. Awesome. Grayson, this was such a great time. I'm so excited for this week 2 matchup. You've got the new show here, Locked On SMU. So tell people how they can find your work and get plugged in with what's going on with the Ponies.
I mean, Locked On SMU, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube at Locked On SMU. New podcast drop at noon Central Time every single day. You can also follow me on Twitter. It's right there down below, Gray_Singleton 2. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Appreciate you so much for having me on, man.
Hey, anytime they play or there's news that crosses over, we'll have you on. And
yeah, we'll probably do this. We'll probably do this game week 2.
Week of the game, because that's when we're going to get the predictions. I try not to ask when we're a month out, so we'll get it as we get closer to the game. Yeah, it's a little tough to predict. especially if someone blows out their ACL tomorrow. Knock on wood. That's Grayson Singleton of Locked On SMU. I'm Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor. Thank you so much for making our shows your first listen every day. Whichever one isn't, go make that your second listen every single day. And we will see you on the next one on this Locked On Baylor, Locked On SMU, Locked On Podcast Network crossover.